This week, here on our free preview on YouTube, join us as we take a look at the housing market and share with you the awful news. You may need $108,000 in your household income in order to afford that home here in America. But for now, sit back, relax, and join us as we take you through the numbers. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Lindsay. Welcome back.
Thank you. I am on a slow mend.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But
yeah, for anyone that's had the flu, this season, it's just nothing has ever gotten me down the way that it did. It's not like me to bow out of a show.
Never. No, I know. We knew you must be real bad, but we missed you a lot last week. We're glad to see you a little bit better. But yeah, 'tis the season, I guess.
I know. Really. How was your Thanksgiving?
So we had a lovely Thanksgiving. Good. I love to eat. So good food and close family for me. I know you guys probably weren't eating too much in your household. But
no, we were hosting. So on top of half of us being down and out, we pulled it together last minute. And it was honestly the best Thanksgiving I think we've had yet. Surprise! I think it's because I kind of, threw caution to the wind and just said yes to all the easy things.
Perfect. And ours was pretty good now that you mention it. So hopefully that's a trend.
I know. So we had a good time. We ended up, we played card games and stuff at the end of the day, and we were up late. So
so fun.
Yeah, it was really a good time.
Better than the alternative, which I feel like in years past is got to get the doorbuster deals at midnight, so everyone takes a cat nap and rushes out to the stores.
I know.
And here we are on. Well, it used to be Cyber Monday. Now it's Cyber Week because they're extending the sales all week. This is a trend. Bill and I were talking about. You missed our article talking that sale seasons are really expanding.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be that day anymore. Like Black Friday, no one's going out at midnight to get the thing. I mean, maybe people still are. I don't even know if that's
I don't see that as much anymore. The doorbuster, right?
Right.
So the good news is fewer tramplings at the.
Oh my gosh! But I kind of
remember that?
I kind of miss all the stories. I thought that was what you were sharing this morning when you said you almost got in a fight over a jacket.
Gosh.
Then you elaborated that was a one of a kind at a thrift store. It wasn't a Black Friday elbow throw.
I know, but that's where I felt. I was like, man, I got my dose of Black Friday anyway. But at a consignment store where there's only one jacket, and to be clear, I was holding it. I did have it first. I'm not the one stealing a jacket, lest it be.
Lauren did not throw elbows to make sure that her daughter had the cutest butterfly jacket.
But it's a really cute butterfly jacket.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
I stand by it. But that brings us really into our first article, which is about retail stores, but in a different light.
In a different light. You guys kind of covered the Black Friday stuff, the Cyber Monday stuff, the positive, fun stuff.
I know.
So here I come back with doom and gloom. This next article that states, and I feel like this number is different in every Instagram reel, every TikTok, every newspaper headline. I mean, this is insert a number, and this is a headline everywhere.
Yes.
You need to make $108,000 to afford a home in America.
Yes.
And so we were talking about the builder affordability. We're talking about, moving those houses. This article is talking specifically about what it takes those would-be home buyers to be able to afford a home in America.
And it's now six figures.
And it's now a six-figure salary.
So just to set the stage, the reason this number varies is because you can make different assumptions. So obviously something like the home price, changes month to month. Mortgage rates change monthly, even more frequently than that. But you can also say, all right, if I'm tacking on this much for insurance, this much for, whatever other costs, utilities, et cetera. And there are slightly different measures of what percentage of your income should go to funding your home.
Well, that was something else I wanted to ask you. This article quotes Oxford Economics, which defined home affordability by assessing whether a home's monthly payment exceeds 28% of a person's income.
Yeah, so I've heard closer to a third usually, so 28%. Yeah. I don't know where they got that number, but
it said a person's income. So I'm curious about this article. There's some nuances in the
There are, but what really popped out to me is the way this compares to not all that long ago.
I know. That's what all my questions here are like this versus 2019.
2019,
which is
that's our benchmark. Pre-pandemic.
Yep.
So I took either the fourth quarter or December, full year 2019 as the kind of base case. In this analysis, the way they ran their numbers with that 28%,
fair.
that $107,700 compared today in the third quarter of 2024. Back in 2019, the household only would have needed $56,800 of income. So we're in the ballpark of double, not quite there, but that's a big difference.
Okay, so pre-pandemic, in 2019,
$56,000.
$56,000 would have been 28% or less of that household's income.
So the income, to buy that house.
To make sure that house is affordable.
Right.
That person's monthly payments would not have exceeded 28% of that person's income or that household's income on a household income of $56,000.
And $56,800, yes.
Compared to $108,000 right now.
That's a big difference.
That's a huge difference.
It is a huge difference.
And I think that right there is when we see kind of the arguments in the comment section when we're talking about inflation. We're like, wages are keeping up. There is this
not with shelter costs.
Not with shelter
costs. You're exactly right.
So when people are out there yelling at us, we're like, yeah, we get it. The shelter costs, that number's huge.
That's huge. That is so huge. Now, there are a few reasons. And just to put that in context, because you brought up the household income, from 2019 to the third quarter of this year, the dollar value income needed, right? That difference that I just quoted, that's up 89.6%. Not quite double, 89.6.
Okay.
Our household income over that time is up 31.5%. So we have made a huge gain.
Yeah.
And again, we're keeping up with overall consumer price inflation when you bring in food and clothing and gas and all of that. But you're right, our household income is not keeping up with shelter cost inflation. Critically though, for a new home that you're taking the mortgage on today.
Okay.
And that's the difference.
My goodness.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And I begs the question, how are people bridging that gap of 89%?
Well, increasingly they aren't. That's why existing home sales are so much lower.
And where is everybody that was working before, right? That's the question we hear from our clients all the time. It's like, there was this disappearance of people during the pandemic. What did they all go do? And how are they still affording their life?
Well, that's the problem. So there are multiple components that caused this massive decrease in affordability. Like, yes, our incomes didn't keep up, right? They moved in a positive direction. New home prices from the fourth quarter of 2019 to the third quarter of this year, those rose from $327,000 to $420,000. So the new home price, yes, that was a big part of it, but the much bigger part was how much mortgage rates went up. So again, I quoted this number earlier, the current 30-year fixed in October, 6.43%. That actually peaked in May of this year over 7%, 7.06%. Compare that back to December of 2019 when the 30-year fixed mortgage rate was 3.72, much, much lower. Now, what I find interesting and why there is a little bit of a disconnect here is that today's effective mortgage rate, so not the cost to go get a new mortgage today if you're just submitting the paperwork, but the effective rate if you average what everyone is paying on their mortgage, that's just 3.98%.
So that just goes to show how many people aren't moving.
Exactly. That's the golden handcuffs that you keep talking about. A lot of folks,
because you can't buy them that low. You can't buy your mortgage down that low.
You, if you could, why would you? Right? It's you're having the affordability hit somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's why I see every time we talk about inflation, and I say, the overall CPI, that is no one's individual inflation rate. You have your inflation rate. I have my inflation rate. It's very different based on what kind of things we're buying. And critically, do I own my home already? Did I lock in a low mortgage rate? Or am I renting and just seeing my rent go through the roof? Am I buying a new home today at these crazy affordability metrics at an almost 7% mortgage rate? That's a really big difference.
I mean, that could be the difference of feeling middle class and upper class to some people. You could have stayed in your home at 3% interest, made more money over the last couple of years, got those incremental raises that hopefully kept up with CPI. And even though things are still costing more, you're not feeling it as much.
Exactly.
Because you just moved out of perhaps a middle class person into an upper class person because simply it's costing other people so much more.
Right. You're not feeling
housing.
that squeeze.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah. I think that the rents are reminiscent of it as well. There's really,
absolutely.
There's really nowhere safe if you need to move.
That's the problem.
Or is there? Where have prices kind of gone up the most around the world? Or excuse me, around the country?
Around the country. I didn't look at the world.
Don't go the world. Don't go the world.
We'll be here a long time, longer than you have
We
today.
might be looking at that in a different segment.
So unfortunately, and I say this all knowing that you just bought a house at a very high mortgage rate in New England, but New England did see the highest appreciation in home prices from 2019 to today, up 36.3% cumulative. Now, other areas weren't too far behind us, but I do see New England, even though it's a much smaller market, it's very constrained in terms of availability of housing.
Everywhere's going up around here because you can't go out. We're running out of land.
We don't have that much land. We don't have big open spaces really left to build. In fact, where I see kind of here, and again, we're in southern New Hampshire, just for reference, I see a lot more multifamily going up than historically. I live in kind of a traditional suburbsy type town. We have a ton of new apartments going in, and typically this was a much more single family type like neighborhood environment.
Oh, absolutely. My new town is turning into a city before my eyes.
It is. It's amazing to see we have to go up, not out anymore.
Right.
But the Midwest was not too far behind New England. Cumulative home price growth of, and this is new homes, just to be clear, of 35.3%. The West, a little bit. Now, I think they started at a higher price point, so they just didn't go up as much in a lot of cases. 31.5% growth. And in the South, only 29.3%, where there is, again, a little bit better affordability balance even today, a little bit better, kind of cost of living and a lot of space.
And is the price of the average price of the home or the median price of the home regionally, is that kind of in conjunction with affordability regionally? Like with this distributed workforce, is a Boston-based salary, or could you potentially be living in Idaho on a Boston-based salary?
Exactly. Do you want to see how this affordability looks across
I want to see it overlapped, but I don't think you're
Well, I'll show you a part of it, actually. This is to the numbers we've been quoting with the headline. How much do you have to make to afford the average home in each state? What we've done is we did overlap that with how much are people actually making in each state. So that is going to make some of these numbers even more eye-popping. To say that you need to make, on average for the U.S., $108,000 to afford the average home. What this map is saying is that someone in, say, California, for example, they are making $120,000 less than they would need to make. This is the delta.
What are they all doing over there?
It is just wildly
living on credit cards? How does one,
or they all own their
cable
home
and find $120,000?
That's very true.
Right?
So my theory is a lot of these, Hawaii, California, some of the really stretched areas. You see a lot of people who are grandfathered in. And I know in certain jurisdictions, I have a friend who just bought only a couple of years ago in California. And, in her Bay Area, you couldn't buy the tiniest house for under $1 million. It's just so crazy affordable. But she has neighbors who have been there 30, 40, 50 years who bought at a very attractive price. Again, have that lower mortgage rate, right? Or even have paid off the house if they've been there long enough. And so that's skewing the value of their home for someone to buy it today. The difference would be this much. But if you're already living in place, right, everyone in the state, I guess, does not have to actually make up this difference.
Yeah. Well, what's also interesting is I'm going to say I feel, because I'm not the economist, I don't have the numbers, is that the median home price or home pricing is not as vastly different. There isn't as much of a spread, I feel like, as there once was.
Well,
for example, when we always would make fun of House Hunters or something on HGTV, and it's like, I have $100,000 and I just bought this major mansion in Texas. I don't think $100,000 is getting you a mansion in Texas anymore.
No, that's true. But if you're comparing that to $1 million in San Francisco,
and it's a shack,
it still is a little bit different. And so I do point out there are, I don't know how many now, but some states in the most recent month did turn positive. So with that little bit of relief that we saw in interest rates, we saw places like Arkansas, Oklahoma, Alabama, and I think Kentucky, they turned positive. So the average individual is making more than they would have to be to meet that magic 28 or 30%.
Okay.
Louisiana and West Virginia, those have been positive a little bit longer. So we've been in a better affordability position. But I like to look at just kind of that whole greenish, pinky white swath of the middle of the country.
Yeah.
That's anywhere that, okay, you're $5,000 short of balance, or even 10, even 15, honestly. That's where you could, like you said, cut cable, or just, go out to eat one fewer. They're always like, if you get one fewer Starbucks a week, then you can afford.
I've done that math, and it does not equate to happiness, so it's not worth it.
You could lose your will to live very quickly. Other than that. But my point being, you could stretch, you could cut, right? You could maybe rely on credit cards or whatever else you need to do to kind of get through to make it work. It's not so far out of reach as it is in, again, California, Hawaii. I think those are the only two that are triple digit right now. But a lot of these East Coast, it's really the coasts that are in the worst position. And so this does account, right, for some of those people who, I make a Boston salary and I live in Idaho or whatever it is. It does account for people bringing different incomes state to state.
Well, I feel like we've, brought the doom and gloom after a couple weeks of me being on the mend. So that was fun.
You're welcome.
But I appreciate you bringing the numbers and the insight as always. That's all the time we have for today here on our free preview on YouTube. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to subscribe to full-length episodes, click on the link in the description below. But until next time, bye, Lauren.
Bye, Lindsay.